Okay, this is video number 15, and we are going to talk about authenticating items. Now, this is really important when you're selling clothing because you will come across fakes, and new fakes are showing up all the time. I've had them show up in brands that I didn't even know fakes were made. So, this is just something you have to be on the lookout for. Um, the fakes, knockoffs, are going to be of the higher end items simply because the whoever's creating them is trying to make money off the label. So you're not going to find fakes of like Ann Taylor or Chico's, Dress Barn, those types of mainstream brands. They're mostly going to be higher end things so that these people who are making the fakes can make money off of them. Okay, so eBay does not allow fakes, knockoffs, replicas, even if you state the item is not authentic. It's just not allowed, period. And you really shouldn't be selling these fake items if you are aware they're fake on any venue. It's just not something ethical to do. You can be suspended for selling fakes on eBay even if you don't know an item is fake. I have been suspended 3 times in my eBay career, all due to ignorance. I just didn't know. One item was I think it was a fossil purse, and I actually had bought it at Nordstrom clearance, and I had the receipt and everything. And eBay pulled it saying it was a fake, and I showed them my store receipts, and this was a clearance item, and they still, you know, they did not agree, even though I had the receipts. So you can win. It's really hard to win sometimes. And is this something you want to spend your time doing? Another item was a Tommy Hilfiger hat. I had no idea those were fakes, so kind of stayed away from that brand for a while. And then a Hugo Boss men's golf vest. I didn't know those were fake either. So things are going to come up you're not going to know, and so just be aware that this can happen. It is actually illegal to sell counterfeit designer items. eBay is full of them, though. It's just very hard for them to monitor every single listing. So um, just because someone else is getting away with it doesn't mean you should do it, and you may be the person they catch. So it's just really not worth it. And there are so many other things you can sell that stay under the radar. It just may not be worth your time to even do this. The counterfeit industry is fueled by illegal activities, including prostitution, drugs, human trafficking. It's just not something that you want to be a part of. It's not something that eBay wants to be a part of. And that's why they don't allow fakes. The most commonly faked items are handbags, denim jeans, sunglasses, and watches. So, also brand names can be faked. So, you may see like a Burberry blazer. Um, there are a lot of steps to authenticate high-end items, but just for the purposes of general selling on eBay, just know that in the clothing category, blue jeans are the most faked item. As far as accessories, handbags would be next. Always have your high-end stuff authenticated. If it's, Armani, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, things like that, Burberry, you want to have them authenticated because you don't want to risk having your account shut down. And this happens all the time to people. They list something, they don't realize it's fake. eBay suspends them and they don't take that warning and they do it again and they get permanently suspended. So just keep in mind that this can happen. Um, you just don't want to risk having your account shut down because once you're off eBay, you're off and that's it. So there is a service called Authenticate First that you can use to authenticate your item. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But never list anything high end unless you are 100% sure it's authentic and you can prove it. First of all, you want to prove it in the listing. You want to show a picture of the store receipt, of the certificate of authentication, any paperwork you have on the item, show it in the listing. And this does two things. It shows the customer that the item is real, and it shows eBay that the item is real. Because what happens here is you may sell like a designer handbag, and if you have no proof that it's authentic, the customer can call you out on it. And the buyer may say, I got this item, it looks fake, I want my money back. They may do a switcheroo on you and keep the authentic one you sent them and send you back one that's not authentic. That happens all the time. So you want to have that paperwork with the item and show that it is authentic. So I'm talking about the high-end brands, Armani, Burberry, Louis Vuitton, Prada, Versace, those types of brands. So here is the service called Authenticate First, and basically they employ people who have been in the fashion industry for many, many years, and these people know what's real and what's not. They have worked for these companies. They may have been a buyer. They may have been a store manager at somewhere like the Coach store or a Louis Vuitton store. And some have 2 decades of experience, so they're very knowledgeable. So basically what you do is you take a picture, several pictures of the item, whatever Authenticate First is requiring, and you email that in, and the fee is around $20 per item. And they will study the pictures and tell you if it's real or not. So their experts have to have 5 years of experience authenticating and must pass a test before they're hired. So these people, they know what they're doing. And when you have their stamp of approval, that really increases your credibility because you have taken the time to make sure the item is real. So on their website, there is this huge long list of the brands that they will authenticate. So, check this if you need some authentication done to see if they deal with that brand. But like one that's on here is Michael Kors. Now, this does not mean that every single pair of pants or sweater or top that you find that's Michael Kors you should get authenticated. This is more about handbags, shoes, uh, the expensive items. So like if you have an Hermes scarf or handbag, Gucci is on the list, Armani, these high-end brands, and a lot of these you're never even going to find. Kenneth Cole, I find that one all the time. I wouldn't worry about having that one authenticated unless it is something like a watch or a handbag. The easiest things to fake are going to be the handbags and jeans, sometimes shoes, but don't feel like you have to have every single thing that's on this list authenticated. Nike is really faked a lot, mostly the shoes, like the Air Jordans. So you don't have to have every Nike bathing suit you find authenticated. This just gives you an idea of the brands they work with. Stuart Weitzman, I find those shoes all the time. The North Face is faked a lot, so I would definitely check that out. If it's an expensive jacket, do some research on your own online to see if it is authentic or not. Now, I'm putting this part in about consignment simply because once you start selling on eBay, if this has not happened to you yet, it certainly will. People will, as soon as they find out you sell on eBay, they're going to say, oh, I have a fill in the blank. How much would you charge to sell that for me? And you're going to have people asking you this, and they're going to come to you with high-end items. So you need to be prepared to tell them how this works, because you definitely don't want to take on something from someone else unless it's authenticated. So if someone approaches you to sell a high-end designer item, you want them to pay to have it authenticated first. That shows they're serious about doing it. Or if they are 100% sure, they bought it at the Coach store, or they know it's real, then they shouldn't have a problem paying to have it authenticated. Because if it's only $20 to have a $300 handbag authenticated, that's nothing. That's just a little bit of insurance that nothing's going to go wrong with the sale. So if it's real, then you can proceed and show photos of the authentication paperwork in the listing. If it's fake, they will have spent their money to find out, and you haven't lost anything. So it's always better to say no to something like this than to risk it. If they don't want to pay to have it authenticated, then they're not your customer. Just don't worry about it, because that is just a really important step. And having sold on eBay since 2003, I have had this happen so many times. And I said, well, that's great. I'm happy to sell your handbag for you and take 50% commission, but I just need you to go to this website, follow the steps, and have the bag authenticated first, and then we can proceed from there. And I never hear from them again. So you don't want to sell something fake, and you don't want to spend the money to find out if it's real or fake. Let the consignment client spend that money. Here is a story that actually happened to me back in 2015. I had a friend, have a friend in New York that used to work in the fashion industry in the 80s and 90s, and she got all kinds of gifts, very high-end items, David Yurman jewelry, this Chanel bag. These things were gifts, and so she's ready to sell them now, and they're worth a lot of money. So she had this bag that was a Chanel handbag and sent me this email that, can you sell this for me? And she's in New York, I'm in Atlanta, and I was like, yeah, sure. So she shipped it to me, insured it and shipped it to me. And that's rule number one of consignment: always have the item in your possession. Don't ever depend on the client to ship something. You want to have it so that you can answer questions about it, and that it's going to be shipped correctly and on time and with the right insurance and tracking. So anyway, she sent me the bag, and it had the paperwork with it. It had the certificate of authenticity, and it was a rare one. And this is my this actual sale, and I'm sorry it's a little fuzzy, but this picture was on Pinterest under my sold items. I have a board there, and it had the bag, it had the original card that comes inside, and the certificate, and we accepted an offer of $1,100. So I only took 20% commission plus fees, because she was a friend and I was helping her out, and she lived on Long Island, and her husband actually died of cancer on the same weekend as Hurricane Sandy. So this poor girl, she just had so much going on, and I was fine to help her out. But so that's just a story about how to handle consignment, that you can have very expensive things fall in your lap. If this was somebody I didn't know, I would have charged them 50%, but this was a friend that I was helping out. So anyway, if you're interested in consignment, we can contact me. We'll talk more about that. Now, another thing you want to avoid are trigger keywords. Now, what this means is, when you have very high-end items and you have the brand names in your title, that triggers eBay to investigate your listing further. And this is why I don't sell high-end items. Not only because of the authenticating issue, but when you have items that have Coach, Gucci, Armani, Versace, Hermes, all those in the title, it kicks over and something triggers eBay to look at your listings. So I want to stay under the radar. I don't want to be under all this close scrutiny when I'm selling things. I don't have time for my account to be frozen and to have to justify what I'm doing and prove all this stuff to eBay. So that's why I don't sell high-end stuff, because I may know that it's completely legitimate. I may have purchased it at Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's clearance or something, and absolutely know that it's real. I just don't want to be put under a microscope and have eBay watching me. I would just rather sell Ann Taylor and Chico's and Dress Barn and Banana Republic and all those sort of mainstream mall brands that don't cause eBay to put me under the microscope. So a lot of these trigger words are under eBay's VeRo program. So if you've not heard of this, this is a program called Verified Rights Ownership, and it's all about intellectual property rights. Some brands and companies don't want their items on eBay because it dilutes the item's value. So they have signed up to be part of this program where if their items are listed on eBay, eBay will pull them. They will just pull the listing and end it, and sometimes suspend the seller. So these companies have people watching on eBay. So the VeRo program itself it says eBay is committed to providing our customers with safe place to buy and sell while respecting the rights of intellectual property owners. The Verified Rights program allows owners of intellectual property rights and their authorized representatives to report listings that may infringe on those rights. Sellers and rights owners use the tabs below to learn more about the program. So you'll go to this page and you're going to learn about the program if you've never heard of this. But basically, there are people with these companies that go on eBay every single day and look through the listings and try to find fakes or just things that you're not supposed to list on eBay. They will contact eBay about your listing, and your listing will be ended, and you may be suspended depending on what it is. So if your listing gets removed, just go, Google eBay VeRo program. You will find this. I'll also put a link in your materials that you get, and read about what happened. Sometimes this just happened. It's not intentional. You just don't know. There's a lot of companies to keep up with, but this can happen, and you just have to address it if it does. So definitely check the FAQs on VeRo to find out why your listing was removed. And here are all the frequently asked questions that you can go and check out, each one about your particular situation. A couple that I want to mention that are you may not know about. The word Velcro is not allowed in your title on eBay. That is a trademarked product, a trademark keyword. Now you can put Velcro in the description area. So if you have a coat with Velcro fasteners, you can put that in the description. You just can't put it in the title because the company that owns Velcro does not want it there. You can use the words hook and loop fastener because that explains what it is without using that trademarked name. So there are lots of examples like this, but as far as clothing, this is one that could apply. So another one is using the word Indian or Native American. And if you look under the policy, I will put this in the materials that you get, a link to this. It basically ties into the Indian Arts and Crafts Act of 1990, where the government is saying that artifacts, grave related items, Native American arts and crafts, and other related items must meet a few requirements when you sell them on eBay. And it's basically about, is it authentic? Was it really made by a Native American? That is what it's protecting their culture. This is not a discrimination thing. It's a cultural thing, and it's the law. You can't say something is made by Native Americans unless it really is. So the reason I'm mentioning this for clothing is because the arts and crafts and jewelry is kind of closely related to clothing. So here's a little bit more about the act. It's talking about what is restricted here. So the main one for clothing here is items created by non-tribe members can be described as Alaska Native, American Indian, or Native American only if the seller meets both of these requirements. The artisan is certified by the governing body of a tribe, and the information is included in the listing. So this can get kind of tricky. It's more for things like rugs and textiles and the handmade crafts. But you are not allowed to use these terms because it makes it hard for buyers to find authentic versions. So Alaska Native style, American Indian style, Native American style. You can't say that unless the item is an authentic American Indian style item. It's just like putting vintage inspired on something that's not vintage. People are trying to get around the rules for describing something, and this is a very specific example of where the government has said you can't use these words because we don't want to dilute their culture. We want to protect the Native American culture. So, this is something that, you might find like a poncho that looks like, it was made by Target, and it's obviously not made by a Native American tribe. So don't use those words on your item. Use Southwestern pattern, geometric, maybe Aztec or tribal, and then the colors. So just be careful with that word because your listing can be pulled, and obviously it's not intentional. It's just one of those situations that is very specific to that culture, and you just have to be careful. So that is the end of this video, and we will move on to the next one.